So it's kind of embarrassing for me to show this video on YouTube simply because that's my truck, and I've had it for about 2 years now, maybe a little over. Bought it 2 years ago. Had a lot of little things done to it that just weren't right. Nothing against the guy that owned it before me. He probably took it to a shop and they did what they wanted to it, which is kind of what happens when somebody doesn't know what a truck needs or a car needs or how to fix it. You take it to a shop. It's up to the discretion of the shop as to whether they do a quality repair or they do something just so they can get a little bit of cash and get you out the door in hopes that it goes bad later and you come running back and they can make a little more money off you. Now, not all shops are bad. I hate to even talk bad about any shops, but we all know they're out there. There's shady people everywhere looking to take advantage. So if you've got to take your car to a shop to get work done, go to your neighbors and friends, find out where they take their cars, and see how often they have to take their cars back. If they have to take them back all the time, maybe their car is a problem child or the shop they're taking it to isn't doing the best work. As for battery terminal connections, this connection right here, you'll get it any auto parts store. They all have them on the shelf. This is for a quick fix. This is when you're stuck on the side of the road. For some reason, your battery terminal, it just won't tighten down. It won't stay on there. It's popping off, whatever. You've got to get home. You go to your auto parts store, you buy this, you stuff your wires in it, you crimp it down real good, and you get home. Or you get to your local mechanic. Then you do basically what I did. You're going to go and you're going to solder your connections. You're going to make good solid connections. You're going to shrink wrap it. And you're going to find a battery terminal that has a bolt on the top. Now, one of these that I took off actually has a little wing nut on the top of it. I wouldn't necessarily go with a wing nut. I'd maybe swap that out with a regular bolt or a regular nut so that you can tighten it down really tight, get a good solid connection. And then, of course, your battery terminal spray, your corrosion preventative, spray that on there too. Keeps the corrosion from happening. When water gets on those wires, it starts to corrode them, starts to turn that green color. Now this is called a lug. This is a 1/0 lug. That's the size wire that fits in here nice and secure. And you'll notice that one of the wires I soldered up was a little bit small for the lug that I had, so I bent it over so it would take up that gap and fit really solid. The other thing you can do is stick the wire in there and fill that full of solder. That way it's nice and solid. And I tested it on the vise. I yanked on it, made sure it wasn't going to come out of there. Some guys at shops, they don't want to solder them. They don't want to take the time. It's a lot faster to take a tool and punch down on this. Stick the wire in there and punch down on it so it grabs the wires. The problem with that is you're still going to get moisture and dirt inside there. You're just not going to see it. And then you're going to take your big fat aught wire or size 1 wire and you're going to turn it into a little tiny wire with all that corrosion. You've got to get a lot of amperage through those big wires. They get corroded. It's just like adding a little wire to it, having a little wire there instead of a big wire. On a diesel truck, you have 2 batteries for a reason. You need a lot of amperage to crank that thing over and get it started. So this connection is meant to solder, not to crimp. And remember, even if you solder it, get your shrink wrap around there, your electrical tape, whatever you can to seal that off. You've obviously got a little bit of a gap between here and the housing to the wiring. Water and moisture will get up underneath the housing and travel up and corrode the wires up inside that. Does the same thing. Wires get corroded, they don't transfer energy as efficiently. Take a big wire, turn it into a small wire. When I bought this truck, I noticed those battery terminal connections were there. I should have done this right away. It would have saved me a lot of heartache. I went on a road trip yesterday, 5 hours one direction. Coming back, I noticed my lights are starting to flicker a little bit. Things are starting to go a little haywire. And I've known my battery terminals need to get cleaned. They need to get redone to get that good connection. I pulled over to get diesel, went to fire my truck back up, nothing there. Had to get out and mess with all those terminal connections. I know my batteries are good. They're only about 1.5 years old. My alternator I just put in about 1 year ago. I know my electrical system is good. It had to be a terminal connection. It's what it turned out to be. So soldering these connections on, I'm using what you would buy if you were soldering copper pipe in your house. It's a lot thicker solder. It's still got the flux with it. You've got to use a flux. And if you know anything about soldering things or sweating pipes together, you put the heat where you want the solder to go. That's why you put the heat at the end of that wire there. It sucks that solder right in there. And then you notice when the solder starts dripping out, that's when it's full. Stop soldering, let it cool down, get that shrink wrap on there, seal it all up real tight. Now I'll leave links to the things that I use in my videos, the lugs, the shrink wrap. I'll leave links to all that. What I'm not going to leave a link to this time is the battery terminal connections. I bought all this stuff on Amazon. You can find it all on Amazon, but I'm not happy with those battery terminal connections. The positives are tightening up just fine. The negatives don't seem to want to grab that battery terminal post. And if you'll notice, I didn't use the typical battery terminal cleaner. I've got a couple of them back here, but what they do is they shave off that battery terminal and make it a little bit narrower and make it harder for your battery terminal connection to crimp down on it because it's actually just a little bit smaller. I use a wire brush. It doesn't seem to destroy it as much. Still cleans it just fine, but yet both the negatives of those battery terminals won't tighten up to my expectations. So I'm going to look for a second set of battery terminal connections. Be an easy fix at this point. Undo the bolts, pop the new one on, tighten the bolts up, you're done. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoy this little break from the house build. I'll get back on the house here this afternoon, get some more stuff done. Until next time, go make something.